Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today as we officially launch Foresight Venture Studios. We are so excited to have you here and excited to talk about what we've been working on the past few months. My name is Megan Beck. Please call with me. I have Karen as well as James Chapa and George Tagert. Myself and Karen are the program managers here at Foresight Venture Studios. James is our fractional finance team lead, and George fractional marketing team lead. And they will be speaking to you a little bit later on and tell you a little bit more about their background. But first, I'm just going to dive into our agenda. Today's meeting will be in 4 parts. The first part, an introduction, why we started Foresight Venture Studios, where we're going with it. The second part, a deeper dive into the fractional finance aspect. The third, we'll be talking about the fractional marketing. And then part 4, where we're going, where we see Venture Studios going, what we're going to be doing with it, as well as any questions that you might have. For some housekeeping, please keep yourself on mute throughout this presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. Karen and I will be monitoring it, and we will make sure we either answer it in there or we'll get to it at the end of this session when we'll have a little time for question and answers. Okay, with that, I would love to pass it off to James.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us. It's so exciting, and it's my pleasure to actually bring this to you so that you can actually, hopefully, we can actually work with you. Megan, let's move on to give a little bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of my background, um, and so where this came from is, as some of you know, I've been with Foresight for some time now. And we saw a definite, absolute major issue that was addressing, which was impacting a lot of our companies. And so we at Foresight were spending this time thinking about what do we do about this? How do we best address the issue that's coming? And what is that actual issue that we have? By way of background, I have been involved in financing companies for my entire career. Those that have known me will say they've heard this story before, but I like to say I've taken an entrepreneurial perspective to it because I've built businesses for financial institutions like Goldman Sachs, GE Capital, run a foreign bank in the country, and I've also sat on the C-suite side. So one of the things I can say is, like you founders out there, I know what it's like to get punched in the face every single day. And what we're trying to figure out is how to actually help you in that journey. We know for a fact that at the startup stage, you're very much focused on the product side. You're there. You may start looking at finance and marketing and so forth, but it's really an issue. You're cash tight. You don't have a lot of money, and so this is where Foresight comes in, and Foresight does provide that support as an advisory role later on. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to this growth stage where you're going to be growing your team out, you're want to expand, you're scaling your sales, and you need all of these people, and you've got the ability to fund that. But there's this, and everybody's heard of this valley of death that's in between. So how do you get from the startup stage to the growth stage? And to me, this is actually about one thing. It is actually about the team. It's about the people. And when people are raising money, it's about this whole point of I need access to capital. Well, I think capital is not just the financial capital. The financial capital solely is there to get you the intellectual capital that you need to move from where you're at to get to commercial. And once you get to commercial, you've got more access, you're building your company out, you can hire these people, but what do you do in between? And Foresight spent actually quite some time thinking about this and what's the best way to do it. And what came out of that is Foresight Venture Studios. So Foresight Venture Studio is, you can see by our logo, a nice V, a stylized V. But I look at that and I see this bridge. I see a suspension bridge that's taking you from one stage to the other. I think George actually sees something different, and he'll tell you about that later. But from this, go with the bridge for now. And what Foresight Venture Studios is about is providing fractional expertise, the best people that you could possibly access when you need them, how you need them, for as long or as little as you need, designed by what you are at. And we're doing it in such a way as that it provides capital efficiency to you. So this is actually what's different from Foresight is that this is not providing advice that somebody else is paying for. This is actually you going out and hiring through Foresight Venture the people that you need as you need them on a fractional basis in a cost efficient, capital efficient way so that it's not impacting your burn to the same effect. You don't actually have to go out and pay headhunters. You don't have to go pay benefits. You're not paying this. You're paying for the use of these individuals, and you're designing that for what you need. And at the start, with the services that we're starting to bring and we know you need, you're probably needing access to bookkeeping. You're probably needing access to marketing. You're probably needing access to, do you have the financial expertise to help you access the capital that you need? But it's broader than that. It's all of these areas that you need to get you there. And we're going to tell you something exciting. This is not just what we're going to tell you today. This is going to be a lot broader than, and we're working on that. But this is the start. Let's go to the next. So why do you get stuck? So we're seeing this issue where the CEOs have this problem of how do you get from one point to the other? And those that have listened to my spiel in the past know that I keep pounding the table that the CEO has to set the direction for the company, put the right people in the right seats, and make sure you don't run out of money. Well, the challenge that you're all faced with is you're wearing so many different hats. You don't have the strategies, you don't have those story told. You can't afford to hire full-time employees to fill these roles, and you're under pressure to actually show this. And the challenge on the raising of the capital side, the one thing that investors are looking for is, well, the you think that the product in your service is what they're really focused on. Actually, they're not. They're really focused on, can this team execute? And what Foresight Venture Studios is about is getting you access to that team that provides the ability to get you faster to commercial. The point here is we're trying to shrink time and do it at a fraction of the cost of for you having to go raise capital and hire all these people that you may only need for part of the time. Let's go, Megan, let's go next. So what is fractional leadership? So fractional leadership is getting those right people that have the ability to actually have an impact day one. There's not the training side that's required. They know what to look for. They have done this in the past. They're bringing this to you. They actually do it when you need it, on how much you need it, and you design that in partnership with them. And the point here is it's flexible, it's fast, and is actually aligned to what you're looking for. No. So there are different ways that you can do this. You can hire consultants. You can do agency. You can hire the full time. But what we're trying to do is make sure that these people are actually in your team. They're embedded, they're part of your team. And frankly, you know what? If you find out that these people are so great, and as you get to scale, you want to actually hire them, that's fantastic. Yeah, it kind of is going to be, we're going to be sorry, but we're not, because that's what our objective here is, to make sure you're successful. So that's our point. Let's look at what, from a finance perspective, why this was such a passion to me. And when you look at why is there such this problem when you're going out to market and trying to raise capital? You may not actually have the ability to see, well, have you done your modeling properly? How are you actually? I like to say, when I characterize investors, I like to say that investors, having sat in the seat, are lazy, ignorant, greedy. And you guys have heard me say that. It's not really as bad as it sounds. They see 1,000 different ideas in a year, and they'll all tell you they see 1,000 different ideas. Okay, that's fine. They're ignorant. They're not stupid. They're ignorant. They don't know what you're talking about, but they have to be able to generate that return. And from a finance side, if you don't have that experience, if you haven't sat there, you don't know what to say, how to say it, when to say it. And having access to those that have done this in the past helps you to just make sure that they the investors see you in a different way. They separate you from everybody else. And that's what financing, having expert to fractional CFOs that have done the raise and actually have those relationships with the investors, that goes a long way because the investors know that they should listen. Let's go next. Okay, so what does a fractional finance person is going to deliver? They financing, if you're making an investment, investing is about, I like to say two things. It's about engagement to build trust, ultimately to get to close, which is the third thing. That engagement to build trust by having somebody that knows what to say and how to say it goes a long way. They actually understand the importance of a business plan and actually translating that business plan into the numbers that are needed, not a revenue projection, a true financial projection. Be able to show that you have everything that you need to convince the market, the investors, that you're actually investable. And this goes to the point of one of the things that many early stage companies don't do is actually plan day one for how are they going to, what is their thought with respect to selling? And having sat in the investor seat and over again hearing when the investor asks you, so what's the exit plan? And you come in and you say, well, I'm going to IPO. And the investor quickly runs for the exit because that's just simply not going to happen, where the probability is so low. And they know that you haven't done your homework to figure out, well, what are those options? Where are we actually heading to? And making sure you're communicating in a way that the investors actually understand. The part that I like to think about in this is that I've watched too often that you're not answering the right questions in the right way and knowing what the end market is, what those sides are looking for. So the point here from a finance perspective is our team will help you communicate because it's your job. It's not the finance person. It is the CEO's job to make sure that there is sufficient capital money to execute on your plan. And that's where we're going to. Let's go to next. Let's turn it over to George and I'd like him to cover off where we're going on the marketing side, and then we'll get back to you after that.
Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. I'm George Tagert, the fractional marketing team lead here at Foresight Venture Studio, and I've spent 35 years helping high growth tech companies scale. I've worked with companies with fewer than 10 employees, a few hundred employees, and some with a few thousand employees. And I'm now deeply focused on early stage Canadian clean tech and climate tech ventures. And my swim lane is really building the go-to-market strategy and leading the execution of every element of marketing, from positioning, demand generation, through to analyst relations, sales enablement, and everything in between. And that approach has helped me drive 2 successful exits, and I'm very excited to share what that playbook can do for your company. So let's talk about the early stage clean tech companies and why marketing often fails. So the first one is the founders often will treat marketing as something to do later. We'll get to that after the product is ready. The reality, though, is delaying the marketing can often mean slower traction. Founders can often lead with the environmental benefit, but what the buyers really care about are cost savings, risk mitigation, and compliance. So often there's a disconnect there. The third thing is when founders think of marketing, they think of simply promotion, but strategic marketing means understanding your ideal customer profile, the different buyer personas, the messaging that aligns with those needs of the different buyers, the whole buyer journey from awareness through consideration and decision, and a whole lot more. It isn't simply about promotion. Another thing that happens is founders often fear losing control. They wait too long to bring in leadership, but good marketing can really help sharpen the story and give founders more control. And the hidden growth tax is the cost that founders don't see on the balance sheet, right? They feel it in the pipeline. When companies delay building a real marketing function, they usually experience a confused messaging, and that can lead to longer sales cycles. That can lead to new sales hires that are less productive, and ultimately it can lead to investor skepticism. So you might have some budget up front, but the cost shows you might save some budget rather up front, but the cost shows up in later traction, slower traction, missed revenue targets, and deals that simply drag out because the story is unclear. And I've seen companies push their marketing off as a later function, and then they hit a wall when it's a scramble and one that's costly and often unavoidable. So founders often ask, what should marketing look like at my stage? And this top row gives you kind of the headline for each step on the journey. So at the ideation, pre-seed, it's all about proving there's a real problem, that your tech actually solves it. At the early validation seed stage, the product is starting to land, so the job shifts to proving that product market fit. At the go-to-market Series A stage, now it's about building a repeatable, scalable engine, and not one that simply relies on hero deals. And finally, at the early growth or Series B stage, it's all about widening the lanes, right? New segments, new geographies, more channels. So those are the different stages. Now, as we click underneath and look at what are the marketing priorities at each of those stages. So think of these as the must-do marketing work at each stage, not fluff, but just the moves that are going to shorten the sales cycle and keep investors leaning in. So early on, it's pure customer discovery, right? We've got to validate that ideal customer profile. We've got to craft that founder-led pitch. We've got to grab some quick credibility wins. And then once you hit the seed stage, it's all about tightening the story, arming the sales with a sharp deck, standing up or refreshing a website that converts. And then at the post-seed to Series A stage, that's where we want to formalize the brand, launch targeted demand gen campaigns, build a proper CRM spine so that you finally know what's working. And when you're at the Series B stage, the mandate is all about scale. So bigger channels, richer content, a team, or an outsourced model, all measured against hard key performance indicators or KPIs. So the punchline is simple as we build out this. At each stage, there's a different engine, a different marketing requirement. And that's exactly where fractional marketing and a fractional CMO plugs in. You get senior strategy, structure, and execution, right? It's not simply about advice. It's about strategy, structure, and execution that's right-sized to the moment without locking yourself into that full-time overhead. So let's talk about what a fractional CMO and a fractional marketing team does. So the first thing, as I said, is define and test the ideal customer profile and the buyer persona. So we first zoom in on who actually buys. So we'll interview customers, we'll do research, we'll pressure test those assumptions and segment the market so that every dollar you spend is aimed at the right decision makers. And then once we know the who, then we sharpen the why you matter, right? Clear positioning, clear and crisp messaging is going to shorten the sales cycles and make pitch decks for customers and investors instantly more credible. Next, we build a scalable go-to-market strategy. We design the go-to-market engine in terms of the channels, the pricing, the sales motions. We think of it as your commercial playbook. It's got to be repeatable enough to hand off to sales and flexible enough to iterate fast. Next, we want to generate some early demand. So strategy is useless without the pipeline. So we launch quick hit campaigns, targeted account-based marketing or ABM campaigns, founder-led thought leadership, pilot outreach, really to put opportunities in the funnel fast. And when James referred to earlier, me having a different impression of what the icon in the Foresight Venture Studio logo is all about, I actually see wings and a sales funnel. So he sees a bridge, I see wings and a sales funnel. You may see something else, but it's all about getting that demand gen going. And so we need those quick hit campaigns to really put opportunities in the funnel fast. So now we want to create proof points for market validation. So those early wins become evidence. We turn those first pilots into we turn those first pilots or customers into case studies, into press and social mentions, and metrics that are ultimately going to de-risk the story for both buyers and investors. And finally, we wire back the back end, right? This is about the CRM, lead stages, attribution, basic automations, nurturing sequences. And that way, when you do add headcount or you do raise funds, the machinery is ready to scale and not to be built or rebuilt, right? It's ready for scale. So that's all about establishing the foundational marketing infrastructure. In short, really, fractional marketing gives you that C-level strategy and the hands-on execution work that turns it into revenue without the burden of a full-time hire. So let's go on to talking about scaling with confidence. We can't really talk about marketing without talking about AI. Smaller teams, bigger output, right? AI lets a very lean team punch well above its weight. And that's true in all functional areas, not just marketing. But on a recent engagement, I fed a dozen complex Google Analytics dashboards into a LLM, large language model. And within minutes, it surfaced the high impact pages, drop off points, quick win tweaks, insights that would have normally taken me 6 to 8 hours of manual analysis. I then prompted the model for a draft of a full website refresh and scoping document, objectives, page hierarchy, SEO, and AEO, right? AEO is now about answer engine optimization. It's not just about SEO. AEO priorities, timelines, and the total elapsed time for doing all that was about an hour instead of the 20, 24 plus hours that it would have taken a Google Analytics expert, a web strategist, a project manager. It would have taken them that much time and more to do all of that. Next, strategy and execution at startup speed. This is the secret weapon that startups have is speed, the ability to do things quickly. And the magic isn't just volume, it's feedback loops. So now you can drop discovery call transcripts into an LLM, extract the pain words that prospects are using, and push new messaging out to the website the same afternoon. You can A/B test 50 subject lines in an AI simulator. You can pick the top 3, and based on feedback from your custom GPT or a team of AI generated virtual advisors that mirror your key buyer personas, you can ship out outbound sequences before lunch. So planning and doing collapse into a single sprint, and that is an incredible power of AI. And the third point really is all about capital efficiency, and the speed translates directly into runway, right? While AI enriches the leads, it can write first draft briefs, it can do a forecasting of pipeline health. One fractional leader and a fractional marketing technician can now replace the work of several full-timers, all without the salary load or equity hit. And investors love that because every dollar now stays closer to the product and revenue. And the board sees a tighter burn rate model. So that's why AI and fractional marketing are such a powerful combination. Strategic brains, algorithmic muscle, and zero bloat. So let's talk about the business case for fractional leadership, right? It's all about speed, efficiency, and investor confidence. The faster traction is all about higher valuations. So whether you're closing customers, closing your books, experienced fractional leadership helps founders reach milestones faster, accelerating that product market fit and investor confidence. Second point is that lean execution leads to lower burn and longer runway. So that senior level impact without the full-time cost. Fractional roles give you the expertise you need when you need it, preserving cash while driving results. And the third point, really predictable growth and is really gives you strong investor confidence. So finance and marketing, they both play a critical role in shaping forecasts, in building pipeline, and really all about telling a credible story. And fractional leaders help you turn noise and complexity into numbers and clarity and momentum. And I'll turn it back to you, Megan. Oh, you're on mute.
I'd like to step in 1 second, and you can actually now see why with George and like why do we want to look at finance and why are we looking at marketing and why are we looking at other things like if when you look at early stage companies, obviously you're focused on what's the problem you're solving, and that's really early on. The next part is who owns that problem. And you can see how when we add marketing capabilities to this, it does help you get from that stage that you're at. And by the way, from venture capital investors like to see very early on that you have that marketing capability. They really want to know who's your chief revenue officer, who is this that's going to drive the sales. So that is actually what was the cornerstones of how we started this. So, Megan.
Perfect. So what comes next? If you are interested in anything that we've been talking about today or any of the functions that we will be adding on, because we don't want to stop here. The goal is really to expand our offerings to include things like fractional grant writers, lawyers, AI experts. Whatever companies need, we would like to be able to support. So if you are interested in any of this, you can see the link at the bottom of this page. Karen is also going to post it in the chat. And there is an application form, and based on that application, we will be kind of scheduling a chat so we can talk about what needs do you have and how can we meet them to make sure it's a good fit. And then we are able to offer more than just fractional CXO help, but we do have senior accountants and junior accountants and bookkeepers as well, so that you can get individuals like that at a fraction of the cost versus hiring them on full time. So it is a full scope that we are offering right now. Now, I see quite a few messages in the chat here, and I want to make sure we are able to answer all of those questions. So please feel free to raise your hand, or Karen, if you would like to read out any of the messages in the chat, now would be the time.
I have a question from Charles. His question is about the cost of the service. Is there any grant support to help them out?
So cost is determined based on your scope of work, essentially, and who you will be requiring help. So the cost to hire a junior accountant at a fractional service rate versus a CFO will be different. It is all on an hourly rate, and we can put kind of a ceiling on costs per month so that once that is hit, we stop working. There are currently no grants that we're offering, though. This is a paid by the hour service.
It is really about getting you it is that point where you're now transitioning from the early stage where you've been using the grants to build out your product and offer, and you're now likely at the seed stage, where you're moving to Series A, in that space where now you can fund your own operations, but you do not want to bring on somebody full time just because of the cost of it. So this really is, when we say it's founder led, it is. You work with us to design the program that you need for what you need, and that's it. So we can work with you on those things. It's to our knowledge, this is not about grants paying for this. This is actually past that stage of company.
Thank you. I saw Francisco raises his hand. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
So, hello everybody. So I find this extremely interesting, but I think it's beyond the traditional definition of venture studio. So I want to make sure that if you're reinventing the concept of venture studio, this is truly what you're doing. And so typically venture studios only incubate their own ideas, they recruit people, they take a stake in the company, and they really never onboard a previous Foresight alumni that is in seed stage and is actually in need for those services. So if it is such a case that you are onboarding previous Foresight alumni into this venture studio, and it's kind of like a practical accelerator in the sense that it's actually an accelerator as a service almost, when you can think about it, where you are able to lend your names and your reputation and CVs to those startups that are with merit and will do good with those people on board. I'm just not convinced that venture studio as a name is unless it's absolutely re-explained that you're like taking it on. is necessarily doing good for, like, say, Polar Technologies, which is in seed stage and does not necessarily want to be seen as being part of a venture studio
Well, our
in the classical sense.
Fair friend. That's why you can, everything has its exceptions and everything gets defined any way you really want to define it. You have venture capital. How do you define venture capital? I know venture capital in Canada arguably could be, some people say that it's not actually venture capital, it's actually private equity because no one actually invests in ventures in Canada. So, this is our reinvention of venture studios and we're reinventing to make sure that what we're here to do, and you can call it whatever you want to call it, but we can call it Foresight Ventures. I'm not worried about the name. I'm worried about the issue that I see in the marketplace is in Canada are challenges. So we know that collectively we've got a productivity issue. We know that there's not significant amounts of serial entrepreneurs and in comparison to what you see in Silicon Valley. So the issue is, to my point about bridging, getting you from that you've now got something that's ready to go to market. How do you get commercial? It's not to say that the market's still not going to try and kill you once you're commercial. But it's my version of, there's turtles hatching on the beach. We need to get you to water. It's that's how do we get you to that commercial stage as fast as we possibly can? And as well as you've heard me say in the past, it's about the people, it's about the team. Like the doesn't matter what you've got. I've watched so many, trust me, horrible teams take the greatest idea and drive it into the ground. Conversely, I've seen great teams take a substandard idea and build a company about it. And our objective here is to help you not hit the same roadblocks. Let's create new issues and new challenges, but let's make sure that you're not getting caught with problems that can be resolved by having the experienced people at the table. So our job is actually to become part of your team. And that's what we're doing. No, we're not taking your idea. No, we're not actually doing the traditional venture studio side where we just take somebody else's idea and put a team around it.
I don't know,
No,
I
we're,
find the
we're
idea
actually in working with your team.
I find the idea fabulous in the sense that it's talent as a service coming right at the right time at the affordable price where a company in seed and it actually needs it. And I wholeheartedly support the idea. It's just making sure that it's a bit obscure in how it is positioned and presented publicly. And if you're going to redefine it, like, I'll be supporting you guys. It makes sense to me.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think your point, Francois, is there is a conception in the market of what a venture studio is. This is a different conception of it. I think when you see the website, it'll be very clear what it is. But you bring up a good point, and I think we do need to be careful to accurately and appropriately position ourselves and our value and the services we provide to ensure that we don't get lumped in or confused with what others might consider to be a traditional venture studio.
There's a couple of questions in the chat, George, with respect to fractional CMOs and how you actually work with the rest of the team. You did a great job of saying what you do. Maybe you want to address a little bit about how you get inserted in there and, what stage is it? When should you actually start looking at this?
Sure. So let me start with that second part, which is at what stage. So, I guess I would argue is that it's never too early to bring in a fractional CMO. I think the earlier you bring them in, the at a strategic marketing level, the more you avoid some of those costly detours along the way. So you don't need a big team. You just need that right kind of guidance, leadership to define your ideal customer profile, to define your buyer personas, to craft that message and support, some of those marketing activities and sales activities. So I typically, can help companies clarify the story, tighten the message, the decks, build the sales tools, the collateral, the enablement that's going to get them from founder led through to scalable. So it's never too soon. Now, having said that, I can come in, a little later. There's sometimes a bit of cleanup, tidy up, tightening work that needs to be done. And then the way that the second part of the question is really how do I work with the team? So I really just embed like another member of the executive team or with the founders who are the leadership team. So that could be as little as a couple hours a day, a couple of days a week, or it could be 8 hours a day, 5 days a week initially, kind of till we reach cruising altitude, as we've really figured out what the priorities are and issues are. That can be on Slack, Zoom, Notion, email, whatever. And I, partner directly with the founder, the key team members. I will guide junior marketers, whether they're in-house, whether they're part of the fractional marketing team, whether we need to bring in a subject matter expert in a specific area. So I can manage those contractor relationships. And the key really is all about alignment. So let's set clear goals on what those priorities are. That can be as far out as 2 years, as close as 90 days, or even the next 2 weeks. And then let's set those goals, develop a plan, and iterate quickly. So it's not about advising from the sidelines. This is about me rolling up my sleeves and helping drive execution.
Sean, welcome.
Yeah, good to see you again, James. Yeah, just a
Good to see
quick
you.
question to build on Francois' comment. I'm somewhat curious. I see where you're starting, and I tend to agree. I'll support whatever you have to do here to get it going. But over time, is it possible we could look at pooling our money? I'm not sure who's in the crowd that's accredited, but I'm certainly one that would put my hand up to maybe make a bet alongside some of you. So in any case, the venture model, I think that it's something Francois may be onto something. We could evolve it into something that includes the traditional approach.
Sean, who actually, I'm glad you came up with that question, because it's actually something that we've spent the last, I can tell you, long time. So Foresight Venture Studios has been in evolution, and we've been working on trying to pull this together and what it can. And by the way, there's a comment just as an aside that Michael had put in, that he actually does see the bridge in here, and it's going to be collapsing if it weren't for somebody pulling it back up. So I'm glad I'm going with that, because I think that's the whole point. Sean, the issues with respect to access to capital being critical to these companies, Foresight Venture Studios is going to evolve. This is a step in a path. This is a launch. And what we're going to tell you today is, yes, we're introducing you to Foresight Venture Studios as far as the finance side, the marketing side, the bookkeeping side, the graphic design side. But today, we can also tell you that, to George's point, we're actually bringing in access to AI experience, where that is going to be one of the next ones in. We're going, and the whole point, this is going to be, we want this to be one-stop shop for your needs to fulfill getting through that gap. We will be there for you as you need. The pulling a fund together, we had actually evaluated and looked at it, and that there is interest and potential at a future date, because I think that there's real merit and reason to do that. The reason why we did not do that as the next step is, and I'm going to explain so you have some background on this. You will see accelerators that have put together a fund and this exists in the market, and you can look it up. And this was seen as, there's a fundamental problem with it, because as an accelerator, your job is to work with all the companies that come in. A fund is there to invest not in all the companies. So the challenge becomes, if you do not invest in all, are you signaling the market and hurting parts of your portfolio? So we did not go down that path. The evolution to provide this next step, Foresight Venture Studios, actually can enable us to go, and if we're doing what we're supposed to, if we're actually helping you get to where you need to get to, we see that there'll be a real opportunity where investment capital will want to be part of this. And so absolutely, Sean. This is not, I expect that that will be on the path of where we take the company. So great question. And thank you for that, because I probably owe you a coffee because it was just excellent. One of the points, so there is other questions in here about where are we going to get the people that we need to, so having the best people possible. The challenge that CEOs have is finding access to that. What we're doing is being that conduit so we can find those people that actually have the experience, and you listen to George doing what needs to be done. And we have access to people, and we will continue to grow that talent pool so that, and if we don't have it, we will go look for it. Megan, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We are looking internally for talent that would help, but also externally through recommendations and making sure that we're bringing the best possible people on to provide to help you. Are there any other questions either in the chat, or does anyone have any?
I can add another question verbally if allowed and time allows.
Sure.
So just so as to be super clear, in rapid fire as pragmatic questions. So yes, you will be onboarding seed stage startups in the venture studio. Yes or no?
Yes. We will be, and the way this goes is it works. So we are not going to charge people if we can't actually help them. So what we're looking at is that there is a process that goes between Foresight Venture Studios and the company to determine, is this the right help for you at this time? Right? We're not about here just to create billing hours, because that is not the point of this. The point is, do we have the capability to execute on what you need? And that is, Megan and Karen will be working with you, and George and everybody else will be around the table to make sure that this is the right thing for you, in our opinion. So yes.
Right. So excellent answer. The model does not seem to be based on taking any equity per se.
No,
Is
we
that
don't.
Okay,
correct?
that, Megan?
We don't take any equity at this point. You're charged an hourly fee for the people that are working with you.
That's defying the concept of venture studio. I like it. And the lastly and most importantly, if there's a strategic fit and you think you guys can help, we get to put your name on our team and in our pitch decks, put a fractional label on it, and that would be still extremely valuable as we position a team for being investable, correct?
100%. These individuals become part of your team. It is, and that's, as you know, when you're talking to investors and you're talking to the marketplace, they are looking at the team. And so when you have somebody that's gone through growing companies and done those exits, and some of you have heard my spiel on, I said I can actually make sure all of you would invest in my hypothetical company, and my hypothetical company I'm presenting to you. And on that is a great cover. So like, it's got a great logo and one page, and there's no words on this except 3 pictures of Gates, Bezos, and Buffett. And there's not an investor on the planet that's not going to invest in that team. They should be asking questions why they're raising money, but they don't want to. They just want to know, they want to invest in that team. And this is, I'm not suggesting we're Gates, Bezos, Buffett. We would like to be. That's fine. Our point is, these people will all have the experience that you need to execute, and you can and we can actually evolve that team as you need. So that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that you get what you need when you need it.
You guys realize that it's even hard to get these kinds of services out of an accelerator. So this is kind of like redefining the whole concept. So it's really good.
Accelerators are funded and can provide you, they do give you advice, but they have to be limited based on their funding as to how many hours they can actually provide you. We're flipping it on its head and saying, because this is being funded by you, we're making sure that you get what you need when you need it. And that's what we saw as this gap, and why we're trying to bridge this is because there is this hole in the marketplace of having access to those types of people. You can always get people, but are you getting the right people? That's what we're working on.
Perfect.
Do we have more questions, or is everybody happy?
Think unless anyone has a question to ask, I have popped my email into the chat. Please do feel free to email me any questions that might come up. I will make sure to connect you with the right people to answer those questions. We also have recorded this session, and we will save that recording and these slides, and I will send it out to everyone who joined today, just in case you want to go back and take a look at what we're offering or forget anything that we've said today. So with that, if there are no last minute questions, we can sign off here. Thank you so much for joining. It was great to see you all today, and please do reach out if you have any questions at all.